on the road, so I had to stop real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like at Pismo Beach right now.
Okay, cool. Are you saying that you're sick and that's why you're wearing the mask, or you're just
On the road, so I had to stop real quick.
I see.
And so I'm like at Pismo Beach right now.
Okay.
I'm missing a
Cool.
tooth.
Are you saying that you're sick and that's why you're wearing the mask, or you're just
On the road, so I had to stop real quick.
I see.
And so I'm like at Pismo Beach right now.
Okay.
Hey, hey Leo, it's like super delayed.
How is it now?
Oh, it seems better.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. Um, okay, so we have about 10 people that are about to join in the waiting room.
Okay.
But I did want to share in the group chat um the YouTube live link
Okay.
so that people can share on social media. Um And then I'm just going to say something very briefly, and then I'll pass it off to you to kind of start the 24 hours.
Okay.
Is there anything you want to tell me before I let everyone else in the room?
No, I mean, as long as you can hear me okay, then that's perfect.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Like I said, I just have like a little like blurb to read.
Okay.
Just some notes, some thoughts that I wrote down this morning. So I think we're good to go. I think we can just like let people in the room and just, start the whole 24 hours.
Perfect. I don't think I can see what time it is. So, um, anyway,
Oh, shoot, you're right. Okay, let's get started. Okay.
yep.
Welcome everyone. If you are not already muted, I would ask that you mute yourself as we begin our 24-hour Asian Voices in the Psychedelic Movement event. I would like to welcome everyone, and there will be more people joining. So what I'm going to do is make a few people already co-hosts, like just feel free to message me.
Begin our 20.
Go ahead and mute yourselves if you're not muted already. That was something that I did not attend to, but I'll go ahead and make a few folks co-hosts so that you can come in and out easily and help others to join. Just feel free to help others to join. So I'll go ahead now and start with some thoughts, which are that I'm grateful to everyone who has come together for this event and shared it with their family and friends. We are recording this event and live streaming. The live stream link is in the chat. And at the last event we did, the Black Diaspora event, I had someone ask me if I was okay. And I just wanted to remind folks that I have myasthenia gravis. So that means it's a disease that means my eyelids don't always work properly. So I might look tired, or I might look stoned, or I might look sad, but I'm okay. But I want to emphasize that if you are tired or sad or stoned, you are still very welcome here. And so we really want to emphasize people's comfort. So people might be like getting their pajamas on, or in the bathtub from the head up, or they might just be in a place where they're cooking a meal for their family. And you don't have to worry too much about looking perfect for this event. We really try to embrace the idea that we're all kind of fumbling through life and don't have it figured out. So we just want to welcome our first moderator who's beginning this sacred journey for us, with us, Rishi. And Rishi, I'm going to hand it to you, and love you so much and thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Leo, for the introduction and always hosting and bringing the community together. Currently, I'm in Pismo Beach, so hopefully everyone can hear me okay. I'm outdoors. and on a road trip. So hopefully I come in clear. Just wanted to say that this event is special to me. Obviously, I've been doing ceremony work, and this last weekend I actually came from a San Pedro ceremony, and a lot of people were talking about how we are working with ancestral, working with ancestral traumas and healing. So I think it's quite interesting to kind of go into the topic of Asians, because I know that people wondered how this relates with psychedelics, and I think that talking about some shared commonalities and also cultural diversities is an important part of working with medicines. And that was one of the things this weekend in the ceremony. A lot of different cultures coming together, and different people like working on similarities of collective traumas. And so I'm grateful for this topic, and just did want to start with focusing on just like a relaxation, breathing, and to do a little bit of chanting for everybody, just to start everything off. So for now, I just wanted to see if everyone can just sit in a relaxed position and just kind of start focusing on the breath and taking the time to slow down the breathing, feeling any sensations in the body. You can imagine a white light above the head, relaxing the brain, the mind, and feeling this light fill our skull, our mind, slowly coming down through the throat and dropping into the heart. I just want to sit here for a moment in the heart center, imagining a pink light, a ball of pink light growing from the heart, expanding out from the heart with each breath, connecting with everything around us. Imagining gratitude coming from our heart for each moment, for all the things around us, for all the people around us, for all the nature around us, the place we're at right now. Grateful to just be here with everybody here together. I'll do a little prayer here. You can just relax and focus on this chant. Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Harihi Om. Om Ganana Hanta Ganapadigam Avamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastama Esarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspadana Sununvanutibhi Siddha Sadhanam Shri Mammaha Ganadipataye Namaha Lakshmi Narayanabhyam Namaha Uma Maheshwarabhyam Namaha Vani Hiranyagarbhabhyam Namaha Sachi Purandarabhyam Namaha Mata Pityarbhyam Namaha Ishtadevatabhyo Namaha Kulladevatabhyo Namaha Brahmadevatabhyo Namaha Vastudevatabhyo Namaha Stanadevatabhyo Namaha Sarvebhyo Devebhyo Namaha Sarvabhyo Namaha Sarvebhyo Brahmanebhyo Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. All right, thank you again. I just wanted to do and share a little bit of an opening prayer, and did want to go back and start with this idea of shared ancestral space, like cultural space. And I notice a lot with medicine work that I do connect many times with my ancestors. And so that's a big thing. And culturally as well, it's interesting that like in Asia, there is like a strong influence from India as a kind of a mother spiritual hub. And a lot of traditions that flowed from Buddhism to Hinduism traveled throughout all of Asia. And a lot of the traditions has come to Japan and synchronized with the native traditions of Japan. I was recently in Japan and visited my cousin who's a monk. And she is a head of a temple. It's a Zen Buddhist temple. But there is a deities connected to a Hindu deity, Saraswati, in the form of a snake. And my grandmother, we talked a lot about things of shared experiences. And it was interesting to see that a lot of the things that I started to practice and study in Hinduism and Tantra specifically, we had shared experiences. And she has a background in Zen Buddhism, but typically with Zen Buddhism, it's very meditative and does not have a worship of deities. But she was assigned to a temple that had Shinto deities and Hindu deities. And so it's quite interesting that a lot of the deities there were the same ones that I actually worship. And through that conversation, we basically came to the same conclusion that a lot of this flowed through our grandmother. And our grandmother was connected to an esoteric Buddhist sect in Japan called Shingon Buddhism. And she was a practitioner of that tradition. And through that, it seems that a lot of the practices that she participated in somehow was transmitted to her and I. And so it was interesting that although for her it's from the Japanese perspective, I went to study from the Indian Hindu tradition, and they were the same deities. And so I found that through medicine work that not only did we have these ancestral connections that tied us to similar traditions, but I feel that even culturally, when we look at a lot of Asia, the outlook on reality actually has a strong influence from these traditions that not only from our own culture, but a lot of the Eastern philosophies and traditions, there's a shared commonality. And I think that helps a lot. I know that a lot of the practices that I've studied with Eastern traditions from India, the Hindu traditions, the Buddhist traditions, definitely created a deep impact on my journey work with medicine. One of the big things is like the idea of what the self is, and the idea of the practices that it could be the idea like Buddhism might say going to a void, or in Hinduism going to Brahma, these kind of ideas that were very pertinent to and useful for my journey in medicine work. And so I found that not only do these things help with the practice of working with medicine, but the things that I wound up connecting with, that this is going to be a little more on, my personal connection with ancestors, but I feel like a lot of the things that I connected with that I had to work through, I had a lot of visions, and they were feeling like things connected with my past lives, and a lot of the things that I had to work through were very similar to my cousins as well. And so I do wonder, I know, like that, if through these shared commonalities, that if it's helpful to work sometimes in a group to heal like collective traumas within groups. And I know that, maybe other cultures as well have similarities that maybe have to work through similar collective traumas. And I think it's helpful also in, sacred space to sit with people, and also having different cultures and seeing their connections was very helpful. So when I was over the weekend doing a Wachuma ceremony, I was feeling like basically I was like the only like East Asian person there. Satish was there, and he was has a from India, and most everybody else had a Hispanic background. So when I was sitting with them and seeing their collective energies, I noticed the beauty of how family was so important and the connection between family. And that imparted a healing for me. And I know in like a lot of Japanese culture, it's very quite closed off. It's very difficult to share and open up. And to be experiencing a culture that had a tradition of being very open, family oriented, was very healing for me. And so not only, that we have certain characteristics maybe from our cultures that we come from, but being with other people of different cultures, I found to be so valuable for the healing process. And so growing up in America, I feel very privileged to be exposed to so many cultures. And it's quite intact, I feel, in America. And it's a very special place for me that so many cultures can come and retain its culture and to be able to share the uniqueness of each culture. And so I guess I just say that I'm very grateful for these opportunities to work with people from different cultures. And through the work that I was doing on myself, I think that besides working with someone else, I did wish, there were people that might have more shared experiences. And I think for, especially in parts of integration. And one of the things that I was talking to with somebody over the weekend was this, in Japan, we do have kind of like a closed off, I guess, side of us. So like we don't share our feelings so often. And it was so helpful to be with somebody who came from somewhere else that helped me to try to open up more. And so I know that I haven't had too much time. Strangely, I don't see too many Asians often in the psychedelic space for some reason. And so I'm really grateful that we have this community today and this talk today to hear from the people from the Asian community in the psychedelic space. And I guess for now, I just wanted to kind of leave it at that. And I'm not sure who's here right now, but wanted to see if there's anybody who might have some like input, like from their cultural experience, And if that is coming up in their medicine work or when they do their healing. And I'm curious just to see what people think about that.
Hi, Rishi. My name's
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for bringing this topic into the space, and I'm with you in terms of how wonderful it is to have this particular event. It almost feels like group therapy for Asians. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to share that I resonate very much with you, that very often when I'm, meeting new communities, sitting in medicine, I am often the only East Asian person there.
Mhm.
And it's always very exciting when I meet one other person. So I'm with you. I wish there were more, and I often am curious as well, um, maybe where everybody else is, because I know there's a lot of us in this space. And I also really appreciated, how you were recognizing our similarities. Also come from a family where we love each other a lot, and we're also very stoic, you know. So,
Yeah,
so I resonated very much with that.
definitely. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that too, because I feel that there is so much love. And I know like my parents love me, but they're, not as they don't show it through like physical affection per se. And they care and they're always there for me and always support me. They're behind me all the time. But it is quite difficult for me to express and share like everything I'm going through. And so I do feel a lot of my feelings are kind of bottled up. And I feel like it's kind of a in a lot of ways maybe cultural. I don't know. Like there's also the topic of even psychedelics in my family is like a taboo even topic. So they can't comprehend if I even explained that I'm doing all this, they would probably be quite surprised, that I'm doing this kind of work at all. And so it's never even came up, and I don't even have this discussion with my family. And so it's nice to meet others, in the psychedelic space that I can share with, and if there's a similar family background, cultural background, um, how that feels to feel that there's others out there maybe experiencing something similar and we can connect and feel that we're not alone. And I know that as a human family, definitely we're all connected. But at the same time, I really like, even when I was doing this Wachuma ceremony, it was beautiful to see like the people from a similar culture, the Hispanic culture, they were all had this kind of close-knit family feeling and open sharing. And I felt kind of like an outsider, but I felt so connected and they were with me. And so they did come and they were supportive and they can feel my heart and they were so loving. But a certain degree too, I was felt like kind of in my own isolation, uh, which I don't know. Yeah, it's good to hear, from others to see if that might also be something like if you feel the same sometimes in these circles.
I know for me, everything you're saying is exactly what I'm feeling too. Like I feel like with this event, it's almost like coming out of the closet, but with my family. Perfect.
That's beautiful. Do you talk to your parents at all about like medicine work or?
No. They just know I'm
Well,
very happy in America.
oh, beautiful. Where is your family from?
So my parents currently live in Malaysia, but I grew up in Australia, so I have family across both countries. Um,
Wow,
yeah.
that's beautiful. Yeah. Do you get to talk and share a lot about your life or?
I keep it G-rated, I work my day job, I have friends and they're very happy that I'm happy in America, but they do not know about, self-help or healing or, um
Yeah.
yeah. It like I think I care for their self-perception if they were to know. So yeah. But my brother knows, so one person knows.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I feel the same. Like with my parents, it seems like they don't want to hear certain things, and I know that that's something that maybe they're not comfortable with, and it'll never come up. They just check on me to see I'm happy and I'm doing well, and that's good enough. So they definitely don't want to check in to hear all the details, and I keep it G-rated as well. Everything is always G-rated with my parents, so they want to make sure I'm like the responsible elder. I'm the eldest in my family, so they want to make sure I'm the play that role of being the elder, responsible and taking care of things. So I kind of keep it that way and don't share all of my details. And if I have struggles, I kind of deal with it myself. And yeah, so yeah, it's quite difficult for me to share like all of my, difficulties and things and trials. I usually like to, um, I wind up dealing with it with myself most of the time, so kind of working through it. So yeah.
I'm the same, so I'm the eldest as well. So I think we have a lot of similarities. Yeah, and I see Lucius has something to say, but I just wanted to very quickly just share that I'm also on a path of trying to get to learn more about my ancestry. So I just resonated with what you shared a lot today.
Wow, thank you so much. Yeah, for connecting. I'm sorry, I kind of lost the view right now. I don't know what happened.
Hey, Lucius.
Oh, sorry, I think I got disconnected for a second here.
No problem.
Let me see. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Yeah. And yeah, I'm sorry, I can't actually see the chat. So if there's somebody in the chat making comments, I'm unfortunately unable to see them.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's Lucius here. Hi Rishi. Thank you for your remarks and your presentation. I really appreciate that. Just a brief background about myself. I was born in Singapore. I grew up in New Zealand. Used to live in the Netherlands. I now live in the UK. And I'm with the Exeter Psychedelics Research Group, actually, at the University of Exeter. And I actually just finished my PhD. I handed in my thesis 2 days ago. So the timing of this this session and this conference is actually really timely. So I'm really glad to be a part of this. And yeah, the theme of my thesis is actually what it feels like to be out of place, or feel out of place, like you don't belong anywhere. And I reflect on my journey as a as part of the Asian diaspora, if you like, in the Western world, trying to find my place and not really knowing where I fit in. And for me, actually, the psychedelic Renaissance has been really helpful in this regard, because for me, I've had journeys with psilocybin and so forth, and ayahuasca as well. That's really helped me kind of calibrate where I belong, and I've kind of incorporated these reflections in my research. And I want to give a voice really to the international kind of Asian diaspora, who also likewise perhaps struggle with where they belong in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, just want to do a shout out to you, man, and everyone involved in this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. It means a lot to hear you and to feel that I'm not alone. And so that definitely, I feel like I resonate with that feeling of not knowing where I belong. Growing up in America too, I feel not fully Japanese, but mostly Japanese, but not fitting in anywhere here or there. And I am curious if other people who are from immigrant parents might experience similar things, but I definitely have that feeling of trying to find my place and where I fit in. And sometimes it's difficult to connect and open up. And it might just be also my family thing as well. I don't know if it's a particular Asian thing, but I definitely have this some difficulties with opening up and sharing many times.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that, man. Just to finish off this point, and I'll let someone else kind of jump in because I can see there's others who are keen on having a say as well. For me, I found what's helped with kind of opening it up to my parents that I do psychedelics is that it's part of my PhD research, and so I went down the educational angle, if you like. It's like, oh, this is for it's for mental health research, which it is. And my parents are like, oh, really? Okay. And I explained to them how you could use, say, psilocybin in some cases to treat dementia, and this is relevant to them. They're like, oh, okay, and so it helps them shift their mindset away from this an illicit drug that has criminality kind of connotations associated with it to actually being a well-being and health type approach. And so it's just about reframing things, I think. That's what I would say. Yeah.
I really appreciate that because I think it is a big topic to open up to family members, people who are close with, the things that we are passionate about. And I'm the same, where I've dedicated myself to exploring consciousness, and working with medicines is to me one of the best ways for me to practice my spirituality and to actually heal and do self-work. So it's such a big part of my life, and it's a shame I don't have that capacity. I need to find a way to bridge that gap, to be able to communicate this and to share, the things that I am passionate about and live for. So I appreciate what you're saying. Yeah, definitely. An educational lens definitely helps for sure. So that's a great.
Yeah, because Asian parents are all about communication, right? So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I wish them.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'll pass it on to someone else. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey Rishi,
Hey, how's it going?
it's good. I would like if you share more how you're during the medicine with Uchuma and other medicines like mushroom and all, how you got the ancestral experiences. Because that I think is a common thread. So if you can elaborate that more, I would like to know like how were
Yeah,
your experiences regarding your ancestors.
definitely. So there are certain things that feel like when I'm doing medicine work that spirits are with me, and they feel like they're connected culturally, ancestrally, and also like past life related. And so there's things that would happen even in my body movement. I had experiences with psilocybin and on some pretty high dose, that all of a sudden my body would walk and move, and I would not swing my arms. And it's a kind of a weird thing how that relates to connecting with like ancestral spirits, but there are spirits of like samurai, and my background is Japanese, and when I was in that state, it was my arms would not swing. I don't know if you can see, so they basically were down, and I had them close to my waist, and that movement and that body way of moving was like in the ancient times, the samurais did not swing their arms when they ran, and their hands are close to their sword. And so it's interesting that when that experience that I'm having connected with this spirit animated me in a way that does not make sense today. I'm not a samurai this life, and that body movement doesn't make sense, but they're connecting me to ancestral spirits or past life, that I'm experiencing things that made sense in another time. And so that was one of the things. Other ones where I tap into dream states. So besides things that feel like a spirit in my body animating me, is visitations from dream space. And so I've had visions like my grandmother when she was passing, and she comes to visit me, and I can feel the guidance. So this is something that is not particularly visible, but when I do medicine work, I feel like my mind is quieted and I'm going into a more intuitive space, which kind of opens up for whatever is near me spiritually to direct me in my life. And this kind of led me to the things that I'm practicing. And it was interesting that my grandmother too, I never knew exactly what she practiced, but the practices that she had were connected to the deities that I wound up going to, which were the same with my cousin. So there's this kind of invisible guidance, and I feel that the medicine work allows me to kind of turn my mind off, and that helps me to kind of connect to this intuitive space. And through there, I feel like I can get guidance. It also works if people around me or other spirits as well, though. So it's still needed to be distinguished, like what spirits I might be working with. So yeah, that was one of the things that I kind of confirmed with my cousin when I saw her in Japan last November. And I never really talked to her, but we had very similar guidance. And there are definitely things she said is coming from our grandmother. And when she was little, she would spend time with the grandmother to go on pilgrimages, and she would teach her a lot of different things. And I had not the same connection, but I wound up having a very similar path. Same deities that I was worshiping, my cousin's worshiping. And we never talked to each other, really interacted. She's living in Japan, in Kyoto right now. And I'm all the way in America with very little communication or contact with my family in Japan. So definitely, the same spirit of our grandmother has been guiding us through this. And I'd wind up having like a deity from my grandmother's tradition that wound up in my house. And so we've both felt strongly that the spiritual teachings from our grandmother is with us. And it's interesting that, you know, from time and space, we're so far away, but we've had the exact same end result of what we even do spiritually. And so the amazing thing too, even the mantras and the deities she related with and she's connected with. And so although it's in the Japanese form and they're changed, the chantings and chants have changed, she understood the same things that I was doing. So we feel like that the ancestors connect this way as a guidance and leads us to specific energetics that we get drawn to, which in our case were specific deities that connected to India. So I don't know if that kind of answered your question, but yeah, so some of them are invisible guides that we feel that lead us places. The others, definitely, I feel sometimes spirits can come in directly in my body. And through that animation, I can feel a certain presence and energetics, something that's from ancient times. And so that's another one. There were weird collective traumas that I've experienced. A lot of things connected to like war in the past. And so I can see things that connect with my family line, family patterns too, which is very difficult. Some are very difficult to even talk about because, you know, we have certain things that might be toxic traits in our family, and it's very difficult to even acknowledge those, right?
Right.
But through the medicine work, I would see like patterns in my dad, my mom, you know, and other people in our family members that open up and say, oh, I can feel that passing through me as well. And there are things that are my shadows that I need to take a look at. So I think the shadow work is definitely something where I can see ancestral traumas, kind of things passed down from generation to generation. And they're like cycles or loops in our life. And being aware of that is very helpful, I think, to do the healing process, to really look at it. And a lot of them, that's why not easy. I think shadow work is very difficult because we're looking at parts of ourselves and our family and our ancestors that we might feel shame for, we might feel guilt for, we might not want to see in ourselves, but they're there. It's like, okay, oh, I definitely don't want to repeat it, so it's worth facing it. I want to have like a better life and to improve upon the generation. So I guess in those ways, I connect with ancestors, family traumas, and yeah, anything that's ancestral that that I need to do as far as spiritual work. Yeah.
Right. Right. It's very nice to hear from you, like the personal experiences you're sharing with all of us. It's amazing.
Satish, thank you so much for asking, and I'm so privileged to be with you, connect with you, and
Yeah.
actually, Satish,
Thank you.
I'm happy you are here in America and
Yeah.
living with me for a while. So that
Mm.
is a great blessing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions, maybe, or any thoughts about what I was saying?
Yes, a lady in the audience raised her hand. I just forget her name because it passed by very quickly, but maybe she could just jump in.
Okay, great.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I'm actually very happy. Thank you. I'm super happy for this group. It was pretty new. My friend told me about the event. I jumped on a little late, so I'm guessing this is just a forum where we can connect. I'm happy to share a little bit about my experience, and it's pretty personal. I've been doing psychedelic healing, not ceremonies, but in a therapeutic way, where I've had 3 therapists now to work through using MDMA, 3-MMC plus psilocybin, most recently cannabis and ketamine, to heal some really, really deep wounds. And so much of the stuff you're talking about with ancestors really, really resonate with me, especially generational trauma. I'm also part of the diaspora. I immigrated from China when I was 10 years old, first generation with my family. My father was involved in Tiananmen Square, and that's why we're here. And, my family in China suffered from my parents' Cultural Revolution. My parents were born just after the Great Famine. So there's so much of that. And I'm also a writer, and I've been exploring the Chinese history in California specifically. And I just keep coming upon layers and layers of pain and wounding that, unfortunately, our culture does not allow us to look at. That whole repression and the hierarchy, the whole filial piety of Confucius, whereas you have to respect your family. And over the last 2.5 years, I've been holding the duality and the truth of, yes, my parents love me deeply. They did the best they can, and yet they passed so much trauma onto me, including really horrible emotional, verbal, and physical abuse. And that abuse has been in my body since I was like 4 years old. It doesn't get talked about that your parents can love you, but your parents can also be terrible monsters. And it's because of the pain that they're carrying. And what's very fascinating and hopeful for me is I feel like, oh, this stops with me. This generational trauma stops with me. I am here to look at it, and I am here to really do the shadow work, as you're talking about, to break that cycle and not continue it, and not treat my kids, or any other, my family members, people all around me, with the same, like, no, don't talk about emotions. Because so much of our family's history, very recent, my grandmother's generation was still foot binding. My grandma went through 4 months of that. So much of that is like that whole repression of pain, of being tough. They had to do that because of survival. We're lucky enough that we don't have these survival pressures in our lives. So, I've undergone such intense pain in my body, in my spirit, in my heart, to try to heal this. And I just wanted to share, if any of you are interested, some of the modalities I've been doing. One is relatively new. It's only a few years old, and it's pioneered by a psychologist named Saj Razvi called PSIP. I'll put the website in the chat. And it's about having a therapist container to you could use ketamine or cannabis to really heal deep, deep attachment wounds that are really stored in your body. And having been a yoga practitioner for 20 plus years, my line of work is I'm also a healer. I do spine therapy. I was so amazed at how the altering of consciousness was able to put me so deep in my body and allow my body to just literally shake like an animal and shake out so much of the pain that I've kept as a child. And I think that I don't know where exactly this will lead, but I'm hopeful that it's our generation who's not afraid of exploring consciousness and dropping into a different consciousness and demystifying, the whole stigma around psychedelics, so that we can help each other heal and have a large community, because so many other Asian Americans I know have gone through the same shit as I have. But it's like, oh no, you have to be grateful. You have to be grateful. And can we be grateful and still acknowledge that this is never going to get healed until we talk about it? And I just want to say one last thing. Sorry, I keep talking, but the question about ancestral healing. So I've been like literally just doing it on all fronts. I have a therapist who's very well, she's a spirit guide, she's a medicine shaman, and she put me in touch with the ancestral medicine work of Dr. Daniel Four, which I listened to the book and I realized my grandma had been doing that her whole life. And so much of our trauma, I realized I don't have to heal generations and generations of it. I can heal what's mine and ask my ancestors, my well ancestors, to come in and take some of that away from me, especially like on my dad's side where I got most of my abuse from. And so I put that into the chat in case anyone's interested, but I just want to give a lot of gratitude for this forum. I hope it grows. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That was really resonating with me, and I definitely feel similar things, with things that are traumas that are past, and not talking about any of our suffering, holding that in, stoicism, and I don't know, I can only speak on Japanese culture specifically, but there's a massive control mechanisms, societal control mechanisms. And I feel in Japan, a lot of it is quite fear-based. It's like it's a military dictatorship basically for a long time. And even with my dad, and a lot of people in Japan would literally die of overwork because they can't express. And this idea of enduring is praised. The capacity to deal with pain, to hold pain, to endure pain is glorified, and to the point where people literally just die and they're not able to share, so they have a suicide. It's typically an escape. So people they have like a suicide forest. People go to the forest and just take their life as the way to escape it. And so yeah, definitely it's I think culturally very difficult to acknowledge and share, acknowledge even the first step, but absolutely to start the healing process. And I do agree. I think this is a generation that we are definitely okay to look at being able to work in any modality to heal and look at these things. And we are privileged. I believe that, our couple generations back, there was a completely different existence, and like you mentioned, I can't even believe there was the foot binding that, let's say, your grandmother experienced, and that seemed like something in a long history ago, but it's recent, when we look at our generations back. And so I think even being in America, it has been a benefit to me to be able to break out of the mold. I don't know how easy it would be if I was still staying in Japan, that it's maybe a lot harder to get out of the mold, because it's in Japan quite homogeneous, and it's they're not the most culturally diverse. And it's all about fitting in, and Confucianism does play a big role as well. And that kind of family piety and the roles that we play in the hierarchy is definitely there too. So I really appreciate you, speaking about that, and I definitely resonate. Grateful for you sharing that. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you.
Maybe anybody else maybe relate or would like to add to this conversation?
Can I
Hi,
ask?
everybody. Let me,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I wanted to jump in right after because first wanted to say, Rishi, thank you so much for the talk. And that little visualization in the beginning was really fun. But I also wanted to say thank you to Jessica because your explanation of what you went through actually allowed me to have a little courage to also step up and tell my story a little bit. I actually have a perception from the opposite side. I was adopted from South Korea and then adopted by an American family in the US. I went into art and I actually studied psychedelics and all that fun stuff kind of on my own, starting by abusing it just to kind of escape. But it also kind of helped me open up with my art and it gave me more perceptions on the other sides. So lately I've been looking more into it and I actually it got heavier because I'm living in Amsterdam now. So it got more heavier with the abuse side. But then now that I came into the discussion of talking as healing, it woke me up a little bit. I stepped away from it for a while, but now I'm going back to it. But from what I had felt, I could feel the pain and the suffering from my birth mother. And so growing up in that environment of pain and rejection and loss and with the whole, story behind it, I kind of grew up with the fear, the feeling of fear and loss and, unsafety growing up. So lately, I've just been wanting to experiment a little bit more with purpose and not just, abusing it, but now with purpose and dosing and finding the right thing that's right for me. And I'm really grateful for this community because I would love to hear more stories about that. And I'm really excited for this journey.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think also I forgot that I'm not sure where everybody is from, but in Amsterdam is one place that I felt called to go to. It seems at least quite open. You can obviously abuse, but also probably work maybe quite safely, for spiritual healing and growth as well. So it seems like a beautiful place possibly to be. And
There's a lot more businesses coming out. Actually, one of them is called Spinoza, like the philosopher. They are doing retreats and becoming more of a bigger business. And like I said, I just started to order this from this company called Microdose Pro, and it has, it gets you on this journey and this beginning of starting to microdose in the daily life. So there's a lot of businesses coming out here. Of course, there's still some hoops to jump through with things like 3MMC. But yeah, a lot of things are a little bit more open here, and it's very easy to find.
that sounds exciting. I probably would do both sides and probably go down the rabbit hole either way as well. But it's beautiful that there's so much of the science behind it and putting a framework of healing is happening, I think, on a global level. And a lot of the awareness is happening where that plant medicines are quite useful for the healing process. And I think some of the things ancestrally, a lot of the traditions that have worked with medicines are helping inform and guide and bring back also into our current modern society. So I'm definitely hopeful that this is a perfect time to be, alive, to work with medicines. And even this forum itself is a testament, I believe, to that process. So I'm so grateful for everyone here and everyone participating and working on the healing process with medicine. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm not sure, actually, I still can't see who is all on, but if anyone else would like to chime in as well, or I guess I can also, reflecting back on what everyone is saying, I remember also when feeling the idea of trauma passing in, and the idea of like, it's not being able to work through. Sometimes I feel that a trembling. And so that's another experience that I have often where, because I can't express it sometimes, I feel it physically in my body and it's very painful. And sometimes through medicine work, I feel trembling and like it's rattling inside me, trying to move through. And so I found though that with medicines that definitely it starts to open things and break things up and allow it to flow and move. So yeah, I've been grateful for having these experiences to work through things that are so locked up, deep hidden within my body. So Leo, I also can't see the time, so I'm not really sure where I am time wise, but
You have about 5 minutes left.
okay. Well, I don't have too much more. I mean, I guess I did want to tell a little story though about gratitude. So I guess it's not going to relate particularly to Asian as a topic, but one beautiful thing I had doing Wachuma ceremony, the place that we were at, they had one of those labyrinths. And I felt called to go and just to the labyrinth and do work there. And when I got to the labyrinth, I noticed like tendencies. So I'd walk and start to go through the path. And I felt, oh, maybe I can hop over or take a shortcut. And I said, oh, okay, there's a path laid out. And this path has been made by people who have gone before, who've taken the time. And it's amazing the work they've done. I don't know how labyrinths are made, but some people have come and put it together. So I started just walking down this path that has already been laid, not trying to take shortcuts or anything. And eventually I got to the center. And it felt like that journey of going and finding and exploring the self to the core, to our source of our self. And so when I got there, I also wanted to leave an offering, but I had nothing to offer. And so I was compelled. I was like, okay, I'm going to go rewind, go backwards and try to find something I can offer. And so I spent some time up there outside of the labyrinth. And then later I was like, okay, I'm going to go back. But I felt anything that I take, I'm taking somewhere for something just to give back. So it's not really an offering. I have nothing really I can give. And I realized the only thing I could give was my gratitude. So I went back on the labyrinth all the way back to the core and gave so much gratitude and the idea to just help clean it, that to maintain it. So I started clearing the path a little when I can and putting in the rocks in the right places. And it kind of was a reminder that including our family, our ancestors, and people who have come before, that people have gone before on these journeys, on this path. And there's sometimes a path that we can follow, that we can trust. And that if I just allow the universe to guide me, that I will get to the destination without worrying so much. And even right now, in part of this journey right now is a testament to that. I feel just to trust and allow things to flow and to take that weight off my shoulder. And so I'm so grateful just to be able to be here today, to share and to connect with everybody. And I just want to say thank you for everybody. Thank you, Leo, for having this platform for all of us to share. And thank you, everybody who's came and participated and
Thank you,
listened.
Rishi.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Rishi. You're such a friend. Thank you so much for coming into my life. I don't want to get too emotional, but you've been a real blessing. Thank you. So our next moderator is Lakshmi Narayan, and I want to pass the mic to her if you're ready, Rishi, to pass the mic, and just want to say thank you so much for you starting us off on this sacred journey. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Lakshmi, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Leo, for having me here. And I didn't know till this morning what I was going to talk about, and I woke up and I was like, oh no, I've got this thing on Saturday morning and I don't know what I'm going to talk about. So I meditated on it a bit, and I decided that I'm going to talk about how Hinduism and woke up in my body with psychedelics, and about what I understood about Hinduism, about Indian culture, about all of it in this really macro conceptual way, which has helped me a lot to make sense of it, and make sense of different things. And so I want to share that perspective with you. How much time do I have here, Leo?
Generally people talk for half an hour and then there's conversation and questions, but I've seen people do it in all kinds of ways. So it's your hour, it's your world.
Awesome. Okay. So India is one of the oldest civilizations there is. And there was a civilization called Mohenjo-daro, which was this ancient Indian civilization. They had all these rock temples and they were very advanced. And then they had, waves of invaders come in. And so the culture became this hodgepodge of things. But it was called the cradle of civilization. And before Hinduism became codified in what they call the Rig Veda, it was kind of a pagan Hindu. It wasn't even called Hinduism, but it was this religion that was based on a drink called soma, and people would consume this drink, and it's obviously a mind-altering substance because they would write these hymns, or not write, it wasn't a written language yet. Sanskrit was a completely oral language, and it was a ceremonial tongue, and they would write these long lyrical poems to Soma for the enlightenment that Soma was giving them. And they would so it wasn't written, it was really something to be experienced as sound and frequency and voice and expression. And it was also an expression of their gratitude for having this beautiful experience. But then, and some of this, what I'm telling you, are things that have come to me over hundreds of journeys, just have come to me as this vision of what the thing is. But then what happened is that they became a high culture. And one of the, and as people connect with this sense of, a greater intelligence and understanding and more energy and insights, and they evolve, the dark side of the coin of that is that they feel a sense of power. And you're empowering yourself with the truth. And then on the other side of that is exploitation of that power. And so I think what happens in high cultures, what happened here was, they had these waves of invaders come in. And one place that still exists as a testament to what happened was called Khajuraho. And they have these stone sculptures of people in Khajuraho who are the whole temple is covered with erotic art, people in all kinds of positions doing all kinds of things. And it's like porn in stone, you would call it, if you saw it. And so I started thinking about, well, how did that happen? What are they trying to give us? And at first I thought, oh, here's a sacred message from this ancient culture, and it was so sacred to them that they put it in stone. And no, what is it about? It's about like polygamy and all kinds of sexual things. It's really, really like porn, what you would call porn today. And I thought, well, who built these sculptures? It's not the people who are having the sex. It's the laborers who are building these stone sculptures at the behest of somebody who's gone down this path that a high culture takes you of freedom of expression, sexual expression, just freedom. And then there's the transgressions of the freedoms and more and more and more of that. And so that's kind of what happens to a culture. So I had this insight about it that, it wasn't a sacred message. It was really a testament to the profanity of their message. And before you have a reaction to it, if anybody is, I just want to let me finish let me just connect the dots, and then I would love to talk about it because it's a big subject. So at first, Sanskrit was this oral language used for ceremonial language. And then what happened is that it all became codified. They lost access to the sacrament. What happens is people lose access to the sacrament because the priests decide only they should have it. And then that whole sort of corruption of creating an intermediary between yourself and direct experience, which is what a sacrament gives you, makes them not want to do the sacrament because it's going to expose that to themselves. And so they stop doing it. And it just goes in this, it corrupts the whole thing. And so I had this one journey in which I saw, and then I read about it in what was his name? He was an anthropologist. I can't recall his name right now, but Gordon Wasson, I think, wrote about how it was a sacred sacrament. So, but I had this vision where, so what would happen is that only the priests had access to the Amanita muscaria, which is what they think the soma is. We don't know for sure. Gordon Wasson was the one who said that. And then they would pee, and the common people would collect it in bowls because it would give them access to this higher frequency where they could connect with a sense of wholeness, a sense of peace, a sense of God. So this was really what was going on. But if you think about what that is, it's such someone paying and another person collecting it. It is such a hierarchical difference. So the Rig Veda brought with it no sacrament, no sacred mind, the codification of all these hymns and into very rigid, literally called the Rig Veda, written like structures and rules and status and caste system, and created the caste system because people thought, they were so superior, that the people who made that in their minds, so much more special than everyone else that they could codify. What's that? Hello? I think somebody had their audio on. Anyway, so wait, let me just look at my. So this is what I created this morning, which I want to share with you. You can't read it, but let me just look at it. So then what that created, the lack of sacrament and all this writing about what it was, is a very rigid structure in society, and it really has rippled out into what India is today. So without the sacrament, they lost their sacred mind, as have we in our culture. The psychedelic conversation is beginning again, which is wonderful, but we lost our secret mind. So when I was a kid, my mom used to tell me stories just to make me sit still, because I was a 5-year-old and she was trying to braid my hair. And so she would tell me the story called the Ramayana. And the Ramayana is a story about Ram and Sita, who are a king and a queen, and they're exiled from their kingdom. And they go to the forest, and they're living in the forest in this really simple way. And Ram goes hunting one day, and while he's gone, Sita, his wife and queen, now she's exile queen, gets kidnapped by Ravana. Ravana, you can think of it as ravenous, and Ravana is a 10-headed demon and you can think of 10 heads as somebody who's multitasking and a lot of thinking going on here. 10-headed demon who kidnaps the feminine, which is Sita, takes her to this island called Sri Lanka, and she is stranded on this island. There's no bridge to it, and this demon can fly, I guess. So that's the story, and it's a very famous story. People enact it all the time, but while I was doing sacraments and I was listening to the story, I understood it differently. So Ram represents the masculine principle, Sita represents the feminine principle, and the feminine principle has been captured by all this talking and intellectualization of something that is feeling is really as much a part of an experience, but we kind of have, as a society, gone into kind of mind control because we don't know how to express or feel things because they become so difficult over a long period of time. It's not like any one lifetime or generation, long time. So, so anyway, my mom told me the story, and what I saw was that it was about this over-intellectualization, over-organization, overthinking of that we as a society have gone into, and that the feminine, which expresses not the feminine as in a gender. I just want to make this really clear. I don't think of this as a feminine in gender. I think of it as a feminine principle. It is expressed in gender by certain people who have that form, but the feminine in principle, and you need a balance of masculine and feminine, not just in society, but inside yourself, because you hold within yourself these two poles. Even in genetics, it's XX and YY, XY, you hold these poles. And if you have a culture that is sexually liberal, if you have a culture that's sexually liberal, which is what happened, and then Tantra, which is called the union of two, became sexually liberal. If you have a culture like that, what it creates is weaker links, because people are having different relationships. It's hard energetically, it breaks it up. It creates weaker links. And so that's not good for family. It's not good for bringing up children. It's not good for children. So
name is Lakshmi Narayan.
Can you mute? Thanks, John. So anyway, so going back to this Ram and Sita thing, so we're in a culture like that, and we're going that way. And what that does is it makes us as a species more fragile. Just on a species level, it makes us more fragile. So so going back to that, the erotic art and the high culture, and that was really like rock porn. It wasn't the highest expression of a high culture. It was the disintegration of a high culture. And that's kind of a point that a high culture reaches, because people who are getting high become arrogant about being able to be high, and it creates a class difference. And then access creates a class difference. If it's really expensive, only the very few, only the privileged can have it. So it automatically creates this social structure that's like this. And we are here. We are where those people were a long time ago. And the rise and fall of civilizations, you can tell that we're at a crossing point. And the crossing point is really about greed and power and access and knowledge and how it all comes together in the society we live in today. So I think the antidote, so for me, Tantra, this idea that comes from India, again, my understanding about it woke up during lots of psychedelic journeys. And the principle of Tantra is the union of opposites. You need to have opposites for a union. You need to have that tension of opposites for a union to happen. And that tension is held both in the physical body and in the psychological body, in the brain, and the way the brain is structured, and so many things. It's so nuanced. It's not just gender or genitals. It's just everything. And that's a tension that holds not just society and culture, but the forces of creation. That is the structure of everything. It just is the way it is. So what Tantra is talking about, which is this cosmic union where two become one, it's not going to happen without a lot of love and trust and surrender. And I think it takes fidelity, a certain fidelity, for it to happen at that highest level, which is now just an image that you can buy on a tanka. That's what it is right now. But it's not just an image on a tanka. It's actually an experience that human beings are capable of accessing. But I believe that it takes fidelity. And fidelity is like high fidelity. What is fidelity? High fidelity sound is a sound that is pure. So when two become one, if that is a sacred act and you want to really make civilization and culture whole, the family needs to come back to being whole. And the way that happens is through fidelity. It's a really radical idea in a liberal society, but okay, so my mom used to tell me that story about the Ramayana, like I was saying, and so what happens in that story is that Ram, the king, and they were both beloved, really beloved by the people. They were exiled by their opponents who wanted to take over, the usual story. So Ram had these loyal followers who were the monkey army, the monkeys. And the monkeys, which is really were all the people, because if you don't have access to the sacrament, if you don't have access to an evolutionary pathway that gives you direct experience, so you can understand yourself and you can understand your divine self or your shadow self or whatever self you're looking at or comes into your, you can understand it from that high place, you're going to devolve as a human being, and it's going to dumb you down. And we've had that meme around, Dumb and Dumber. We've had that meme, so it's going to happen. So again, back to sacred mind, back to purity, back to fidelity. And then fidelity gives you duration as a couple or as a team or whatever the thing is. Fidelity, loyalty, these things all come in tow. And they don't have to be these kind of puritanical, what's the word? I think, there was this kind of, there's been a movement to really be strict with other people. That's not what I'm talking about. It's not that. It's a different kind of fidelity. It's where you find that fidelity of actually loving someone and being able to love them deeper and being able to love them in a more whole way. And there's really some truth to that idea of unconditional love. That's what our kids need. That's what our partners need. Everybody needs that. But if you're in a polyamorous situation, I used to always call it like, oh, that's like being on a short leash. It really is. And so I think what our culture needs is a return to what they call family values, which, it all kind of comes together in this hologram, but at a higher level of coherence. So the Ram and Sita thing, back to it, I think after that I can open it up. So Ram called upon his monkey army because there was no bridge to go to this island, and they brought these rocks and they built a bridge. All this army of monkeys, led by their kind of like god king. He was a god king, and so in those days, kings were they really made sure that kings had access because you needed to be able to rule well. And so there was this idea of a priest king or a god king, and Ram was one of those. In fact, Gandhi, when he got shot, was praying Ram, 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 and while he knew something was coming, I guess. So Ram is like a god in India. So they built a bridge and they rescued Sita. That was the rescue of the feminine. And then they united and they went back and they won the kingdom back. And that's the story. And it's called the Festival of Lights, and they celebrate it every year at Diwali. But in these journeys, like, so what I understood about that is that it was a myth. And the myth is extrapolating this relationship between your male and female sides, thinking and feeling, right and left, X and Y, and it's building a bridge in the middle. And that's a physical thing in the brain where there's a bridge in the middle. And in Hindu philosophies, they call that the swan, that there's this, it's kind of shaped like a swan. And what they're talking about is your pineal gland awakening and emitting light. And then as it does that, it's like a diode inside your head, and you start to literally see light in your head. And many people who do psychedelics will see light. And so that's what they're talking about. And in fact, that whole image of the pineal is everywhere. If you look at, if you go to the Vatican, there are these huge pillars, and they have this image that's like a lotus, which is also a fractal of that. And it's the pineal gland, flowering of the pineal gland. This is a real thing. In fact, we put it on our homepage for awake.net, the flowering of the pineal gland. That's what it's about. And that's really the promise and the gift and the beauty of psychedelics, is that it will allows your pineal gland to flower like that. With guidance, blah, blah, blah. But, it's the promise. It's the promise of it. And because as a culture, we have had thousands of years of repression and lack of access, we're like a drainage system that hasn't been unclogged in a long time, and there's a lot of stuff you have to go through before you can have that promise of that experience. But then don't mistake the journey for the goal, So anyway, I just so the gods and goddesses. So people have tried to leave a clue that what you are is this. There is only one, and from one comes everything else, and one is the creator, and you're the creator. The creator is in you, however you put it. And it's kind of tricky. You have to put it in ways where your ego doesn't get inflated with some sense of self-importance, because then you've lost it. In that moment, you've lost it. It's really like a divine dance of understanding that, yes, you are in an individual body, and you do have an ego, and it's a divine thing, your ego. The expression of it may not always be divine, but it is a divine thing, and you're inside of it, and you have power of expression and understanding, and you've been given all these tools. And just like if we didn't have tomatoes, and tomatoes are one of those fruits that are everywhere. I mean, they're really everywhere, and they're red, and they're good for the heart because you have lycopene. So it's like it's there. The clues are there in the whole of it. Just like if you didn't have tomatoes, and the reason tomatoes are so ubiquitous, you could say, is because they are good for the heart. Just like that, these plant medicines that open up the spiritual pathways are there for they are spiritual tools, just like foods, they're foods for the soul and the psyche and the psychology and the body and all of it, really. They're such powerful medicines. So I've kind of devoted many years, and I'm continuing to devote many years to ibogaine and to bringing that forward as a medicine for addiction. And so ibogaine is a root bark um, it's a root bark from that grows indigenously in Africa, tropical subcontinent, and it can interrupt opioid addiction or meth addiction or other really serious, deadly addictions in a single treatment. I mean, sometimes it takes people 2 treatments, because if you don't have a good integration program afterwards, you might have to go back. There are conditions, but in general, and it's been done this with thousands and thousands of people who go to Mexico or other places to do it. It does do that. It interrupts. It literally physiologically and psychologically interrupts your opioid, your addictive receptors, so that you go to a pre-addicted state. But then psychospiritually and spiritually, what it does is it connects you with a sense of wholeness, a sense of purpose, or maybe sometimes just a sense that you have to take a look at some trauma before you can proceed, because it shows you that over and over again. Says, this is what you got to take a look at. So how it acts in different ways to take you to that. And so, but Ibogaine is a Schedule I drug, and so there's no access. So we created this program. Can I talk about this for a few minutes, Leo? Yeah, okay. So we at awake.net have created this program called FEAT, the Fund for Entheogenic Addiction Treatment. It's like a $10,000 treatment. And we created a 9-month program for integration. And we're bringing together these mentors and masters from the Ibogaine and psychedelic integration, preparation, detox, all these things that you need. You really need a kind of a team around you, bringing them together to help people who apply for the FEAT grant to go through Ibogaine successfully and be able to redeem their lives, not just end their addiction, but redeem their lives and get on this journey of evolution that I've been talking about, that psychedelics are there for. Like, get on it and be live your life, be able to live your life with profundity that you can actually live your life with. As people who do psychedelics, as they wake up, they understand that idea that there's a profundity to it. So anyway, so what we're doing is the FEAT applicant comes in and they fill out a form, and if they're a viable candidate, they have to contribute $2,000, and it starts with that. It starts with their skin in the game of this journey they're embarking on, and then we raise $8,000 for them. We help them raise it. We create a crowdfunding campaign. They send it out. We send it out, and that's how it happens. So it's a communal effort, and we're building community right now on awake.net. And if you can bring your talents in transformational healing, whatever form that comes in, please join us. So anyway, I guess that kind of concludes my talk. And yeah, I'm opening it up to questions about any of it. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have a few minutes before it's being aired. I mean, as far as the next moderator, Lakshmi, do you want to finish any of your thoughts before our next moderator pops on, in terms of what you were sharing about the story of Sita and reclaiming the divine feminine?
Yeah, so so what I'd like to say is that because we've lost access to the sacramental experience and the wisdom of it over a long time, these myths there are myths in different cultures, fairy tales, Celtic fairy tales, stories of gods and goddesses in Hindu mythology, other kinds of devices. These are really like devices to contain this knowledge when you're inside of a repressive, suppressive culture, not just of women, but of human potential, repressive of human potential, because then you can rule a society better if they're dumbed down than you can if they're evolving their consciousness. And this is the eternal power dynamic that arises over and over again in cultures that become high societies. High societies, the class difference becomes bigger. People want to control access because knowledge is power. That's the basic dynamic. And so that's happened over and over again. It's not just George Orwell. It's really what happens. And so we, as a people, as a mind manifested people, can take charge of how we ourselves interact with these plant sacraments. We have that power to take charge of our relationship with plants. And you know, things are opening up a little bit, but we don't have to play that narrative out again. And yet you can see it. You can see the narrative happening of the branching out of culture into too many branches, too much diversity, too many choices. It's like an excess, and it's also a kind of mind control. I think this is a radical idea, but just like sacramental is sacred mental, governmental is governing the mental. It's all in the words. So I think I want to just end there and to say that we have a long history with psychedelics going back to the earliest civilizations, and much can be learned from history of what to do or what to not do. And then I also want to invite people to visit Awake and check it out. And if you're so inspired, join us in our mission to end addiction. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Lakshmi or feedback on her talk today?
I think Joanna said, let me see. Oh, thank you, Joanna, for listening.
Well, I had shared that was one of the most impactful stories for me growing up when I was a kid in India, was the story of saving Sita. And I had never considered it from the perspective of like reclaiming the divine feminine. And that I was very struck by your saying that, because it just got me thinking. And I just thought it was interesting that of any story in Hindu like scripture, that story has always just really stood out for me. We had named our family cat Sita after that story. So I appreciate your sharing the story from a different perspective than I had thought about it before.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, my sister's name is Sita too. Yeah, it's that's a big, very powerful myth in India. But you know, the origins and why those myths are written get forgotten. Same with fairy tales. But yeah, I can totally understand. It was radical for me when I saw it from that perspective of this bridge in my mind, and about looking at maleness and femaleness as qualities rather than properties. You know, it was a big shift. So thank you.
Definitely. So our next moderator is joining, but because of her institution, because Stanford has like a policy for her, she's going to talk off the record because of the live stream right now. And so I just wanted to preface everything by saying we came back on to the new Zoom. Please share the new Zoom with folks if you can, so we can get the word out there that we needed to change the Zoom. But then also just letting you guys know that for our next moderator, Dr. Shah, we're going to be going off the live Zoom for now.